morning, did you find some neighbors? Who is your neighbor today? It's a simple question. Very simple question. And it's so simple and so innocuous that it's hard to believe that that question and the answer to that question could help to determine whether you might inherit eternal life. But that was the way it went with Jesus, and that the lawyer questioned him in Luke, as reported in Luke. If you're going to answer that question, you might look to your right, to your left, in front of you and behind you, and name the people that you see. Or you might reflect back to your home and think about the neighbors who live across the street or along in your neighborhood. Those would be your neighbors. But in the context of what Jesus talked about, it was a much bigger question and a much broader answer. The lawyer asked, how can I inherit eternal life? And Jesus said, well, what do the scriptures say? And he gave the answer, love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself. Now that begs the follow-up question, I think, if you want to be thorough, and you want to really get the answer right, because who wants to be wrong about the question of eternal life, right? It's a big one. It's a big question. So you kind of have to ask the follow-up question. Okay, now who exactly do you mean here? Who is my neighbor? I want to get this right. And so then he tells a story. Instead of giving a specific list, these are the people. He tells the story of a man, a Jewish man traveling on the road from Jerusalem to Jericho. He fell among robbers. He's beaten, he's robbed, and he's left for dead. Similar to a recent story in Wichita, where a young woman named LaShonda Calloway went in and was doing a little shopping in this convenience store in Wichita. She ended up getting into an altercation, and she was stabbed badly, laying in the aisle. Fortunately, there was a surveillance camera that showed the person who did it, and then showed 5 people step over her and continue shopping. One did stop, took out their cell phone, took a picture of her, and moved on and continued to shop. She died. The police chief said, what is going on? What has happened to our respect for human life? Well, the Jewish man on the road to Jericho had people come upon him too. 3 people, and the rest of the story is really what I would say a story of irony and controversy. Irony because the first 2 people who came were the most likely to help him, a priest and a Levite. The priest came, saw, went around. The Levite, who's a fellow Jew, a man of law, who knew the law, who knew that you should take care of others, who knew you should love others, went around. Now, there's no explanation for why they did that. And we can conjure up reasons. Because we're sometimes in circumstances like that where we avoid bad situations. So we can think of reasons that they could have been in a big hurry. They could have felt that the circumstances were a trap, where you go and there's someone there who's been beaten, and if I go there, there's others waiting to prey on me. I can become a victim, right? Or maybe the priest was dressed in such a way that if he went and I read this from a commentator, if he went and the person was bleeding and he tried to help and he got any blood on him, he'd have to go back to his home. He couldn't continue on his way. He'd have to go back to his home and bathe and clean and change his clothing and so on. So there may be some reasons why they wouldn't help him. But that's ironic. The 2 people you'd expect to help of the same faith group would pass by. And then the Samaritan who comes along, the Samaritans and the Jews were at odds. They were enemies. They were not friends. The Jewish people considered the Samaritans to be unclean. They were outcasts. They were pagan worshipers. They were not friendly. And so for this Samaritan to come and to help him and go out of his way in such a way as to provide everything he had. He'd share with him oil and wine to cleanse his wounds, and his animal to carry him, and his time, a full day overnight, and then his money. He gave of everything. He obviously was a man of some money, but he did everything to help this person who was of the enemy class, of the enemy group, which is ironic. Very ironic. And it's controversial because the message that it sends us today, in a world where so much is going on amongst groups that are fighting, how do we apply this message to ISIS, to Syrian refugees, to immigrants in immigration reform, to people who are involved in police shootings on both sides, to random people who are engaged in random, horrific violence? How do we apply this message to these groups? That's where the controversy is. And how can we show love and compassion for people, all people, with things like that going on? That's quite a challenge. And that's why this passage is relevant for us to at least think about and consider. And I'm not here to pontificate about anything political. Jesus was not real big on politics. He didn't talk about what the government should or shouldn't do. Jesus was more in the business of personal redemption and how we should govern our affairs, person to person, like you to me. And that's how he made this passage about this good Samaritan dealing with the man right before him. Jesus was more concerned about the here and now and how you relate to the people you come into contact with. So I'm not going to go beyond and say, well, here's what we need to do as a state or federal government or what have you. I'm not going there, because Jesus never went there. He just did. He's in the business of personal redemption and how we deal with the people we come into contact with and the love that we show them and how we relate to them, regardless of their class, their religion, their background, their sinfulness, or their reputation. But it is a complex issue on a broader scale that certainly requires great prayer, discernment, study, and all of that. The other passage that I read about Jesus sending out the 70 in pairs to the towns was interesting because it had the evangelism part to it. Jesus was wanting to have people learn about him, and so he sent others out. He couldn't do it all himself. So he sent others out. And he told them to go to towns, spend time there, get to know them, person to person, heal the sick. He gave them the power to heal. And so they're healing the sick. They're providing that person-to-person ministry, that help. And then they can tell the people there about Jesus. It opens the door. It's kind of like what Chris Condon and I saw and really heard about when we went to Nigeria the first time back in the fall of 2012. We heard about how these caring ministries that the United Methodist Church in Iowa was doing in Nigeria, in east central Nigeria, was helping them to evangelize. We were sitting in the office of the General Superintendent of the Central Conference of the United Methodist Church in Nigeria, Reverend Ellie. We were sitting across from him, and he was expressing his gratitude for us coming there. Because to them, the fact that you're just there, they say, you don't have to be actually doing anything. The fact that you travel halfway around the world to show, hey, we're interested in you. We care about you, and we're here. We travel all the way to see you and to talk to you. They feel very grateful for that, and he shared that with us. But then he went on to share how the social ministries, the wells that were being done, the hospitals and medical clinics and the schools and things that the United Methodist Church was doing and had been doing for some 25 years, was really amazing because it was provided for all people. You know, half the people there in that area, in the center of Nigeria, half of them are Muslims and half of them are Christians. So there's kind of an unspoken spiritual war, but they get along actually quite well for the most part, except for the extremists. And you all know about that. They make the newspapers. but for the most part, they get along very well. And the thing about it is, he said, those ministries are shared. That water is shared with everybody. The schools are shared with everybody. The clinics and the medicine are shared with everybody. We're not distinguishing. It's not like Christian only. Are you a Christian? You can come on in. No, it's not like that. It's for everybody. And that was something that they saw, and they would, their Muslim brothers and sisters would come and partake and so on, and they would say, hey, these people, they care about us, and they're helping us, and wow, that's something else, and it softens their heart, and it makes them wonder, what is it with these Christians? I'd like to know more about that. I'd like to be like that. So it softens their heart, and it opens the door for the gospel, and so that's how you can do it with. Like Jesus sent them out, two at a time. Go there, lay the groundwork for the gospel. But you don't have to go to Nigeria to do that. You don't have to go to Nigeria because there's plenty of need, plenty of opportunities to do the same kind of thing in our own town, our own state, our own nation. You can walk out this door and drive around. Within a few minutes, you'll find some need. You're looking for it. And we all see it. And we all sometimes do a better job than others. I've driven by the people with the signs up, we'll work for food, or something about their medical needs, or something about I need to get home, I'm out of money, I need to travel to Quad Cities. And sometimes you'll pull out some money and hand it to them, and other times you just drive on by, wondering, should I have given them something? What if I would have? Where would the money have gone? Feel a little bit like, I'm not sure if the money would have gone for a good thing. It's a way of justifying not giving the money. Or maybe you give some money and then wonder, well, I wonder how they'll do. So we see that need ourselves out on the road at the intersections. And it's a struggle. It's always a struggle on how to do it right. You know, and I guess we just have to do our best to pray about how we're going to handle those situations. But we see it, we encounter it too. Maybe not quite the degree of finding someone dying on the road, beside the road, but we see similar situations. So I ask you, who's your neighbor today? Who's your neighbor? It's one of those things that, given the import of the question, when we get up in the morning, we ought to make that one of our top 2 or 3, where you get up, and say, all right, well, where's the half and half of my coffee? And then what am I going to do today? And then who's my neighbor today? Maybe there would be a couple, 3 questions you'd ask yourself every morning, because it is an important one. Who's my neighbor today? And so what am I going to do today? The fact of the matter is that Jesus was telling a story about helping someone in need and bringing them out of a situation of total despair. And in essence, he was telling a story about himself. Because Jesus, in fact, is the ultimate good neighbor. He's the ultimate good neighbor, and he's the one that we want to imitate in any situation. Because Jesus saw a world full of sinners, people robbed of their potential, stripped of their dignity, wounded by their sins, by the sins of others, people unable to rise by themselves from their beaten state. And so Jesus came down to where we are. We had no right to deserve that, no right to expect that. And yet Jesus did that for us, an act of mercy, an act of the ultimate Good Samaritan. And through his death and resurrection, he covers our nakedness, he binds our wounds, he heals us completely in every way. He puts us within the safety of his church, and he provides for our physical and spiritual needs on a daily basis. He gives us more than we could ever ask for. And he only asks us to go, try to do likewise.